Hey everybody, today we are going to continue looking at the absolute value unit, and for the next couple of days we are going to be graphing the absolute value inequalities. So as you can see, I have my notes open on the left and I have my Desmos graphing calculator open on the right. So make sure that you do open up your graphing calculator when you are working on your assignment for today. So let's go ahead and review some things here, review the inequality symbols. So let's go ahead and take a look at the table that's in the notes. So the very first symbol in the table represents less than or equal, which produces a solid line when graphed, and the shading for this one is going to be below. The second symbol in the table represents greater than or equal to. It also produces a solid line, and the shading is above. The third symbol in the table is less than. It produces a dotted line, and the shading is going to be below. The last symbol in the table is greater than, which also produces a dotted line, and the shading is above. So if you're still confused with some of these symbols, make sure that you do write them down in your notes. So let's go ahead and let's get started graphing. We only have 2 examples to look at. Okay, so I'm going to take this very first inequality and we're going to go over to the Desmos graphing calculator. So what we want to do is we want to type this in exactly as we see it. So I need to start with the y, and then I do need the less than symbol, which is right here, not the less than or equal to, just the less than symbol. The absolute value button is this one right here above where it says ABC. It has the double bars with the A in between. We're going to put the X in there. Arrow to the right, get out of the absolute value bars because you want this -6 to be outside. So we want -6 to be outside of the absolute value bars. And here's your graph. So we need to answer a few things about this graph. What type of line did it produce? Well, hopefully you're able to see that before even graphing, but as you can see, the Desmos graphing calculator does do this for you. It does give you a dotted line. And then where is the shading in reference to this absolute value graph? Is it above, which would be inside, or below, which would be outside? Well, in this case here, it is below. And if you're still a little confused on, ooh, is that above or below? Go back to the inequality, which says less than, match it up. And in the table right here, it does say below. Okay, so we need a few more things here. We do need the vertex, the zeros. So remember, just as a review, your zeros are only going to be the x-intercepts. Write that on there. That's all we want are the x-intercepts. And then we're going to name 2 solutions. So going back to the Desmos graphing calculator, your vertex is that turning point, that sharp V. And if you click on the point right there, you can see it is 0, -6. This is a graph, just reviewing transformations that did go down 6 units. Okay, so zeros. This is where your graph is going to cross the x-axis. Now remember, it can cross 2 times, once, or not at all. So I can see right here on my x-axis, I have 2 points that are already highlighted for me. So I'm going to click on those. And there are the 2 zeros. So we have -6, 0. And we have +6, 0. Okay, so now that we have our graph, we have our zeros, our vertex. Now let's name 2 solutions. Well, class, the points are endless. You can pick any point that, remember, falls within this shaded region, but in this case here, it cannot fall on the dotted line. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit more here. Maybe scroll out, maybe something like this, like a -3, -5. That looks good to me. -3, -5. And maybe come over here. Let's go to positive 10, positive 2. That looks like a good one as well. Move up, positive 10, and positive 2. So again, just reviewing that a solution is any point that falls within the shaded region. So I'm going to pause and I'm going to get this graphed over here for you guys. Okay, so now that we have that graphed and now that we have answered our questions, let's go ahead and let's take a look at the second graph. Okay, so graph number 2, we have y is greater than or equal to, so let's go into Desmos. Again, remember you want the y. We want greater than or equal to, and we have the absolute value of x minus 2, so we're going to type in x minus 2, and arrow to the right. And then the minus 3 needs to be on the outside. So here it is graphed for you. Okay. So as we can see, just based on the inequality and based on the graph that's given to us, we can see that this is a solid line. The shading in this case is going to be above. The vertex, again, go to your graph, see if you can click on your picture. It should highlight for you, and there it is, which is 2, negative 3. And just going back to the lessons before the break, remember the vertex can be found with the x-coordinate inside the absolute value bars and the y-coordinate outside. This graph moved right 2 and down 3. Okay, so we also need the zeros. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on where it crosses the x-axis. So we have negative 1, 0, and we have 5, 0. And keeping in mind, now that we need to name 2 solutions, that can be anything within this shaded region. And because it's a solid line, it can be any point along the solid line as well. So again, the answers are endless. So we could pick a point, say maybe a positive 3, positive 5, which would fall up here, positive 3, positive 5. You can pick anything that falls along this solid line. Let's see if I can find something for you. Right there, there's a nice decimal, or anything down here. You can also pick the y-intercept, 0, negative 1. Again, endless possibilities. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pause and I'm going to get this graphed over here in your notes for you. Okay, so now that that's graphed for you, please make sure that you do utilize your Desmos graphing calculator. And make sure that you are working on your assignment, and we'll do some more graphing tomorrow.